Hello, this is Reverend Ken Wilcox at the Center for Spiritual Living here in St. Augustine, Florida. This past week I used for my talk a history lesson. Now I know most people when they think history lesson, they'll think it's really a boring topic, but this was pretty interesting. It has to do with Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert. He was a German prince who was imported over to be her husband, and he did a great job of it, which was no piece of cake. He was not really liked by the British people. He didn't really get a very great welcome when he came to Britain, but he did the best he could, and he actually did a lot of good. He completely reorganized the royal family. He lifted up the opinion that the British people had of the royal family. He helped create better housing for the working poor, and he also helped with the military. One idea he had about life that's going to have a big impact on us in the next couple of months is Christmas trees. He was really responsible for Christmas trees being popular in the English-speaking world. He was much like Steve Jobs was. It wasn't so much that he came up with brilliant ideas, but he surrounded himself with people who had brilliant ideas. And one of those brilliant ideas was the first World's Fair. It was held in London, and he was to organize it. And oh my goodness, the complaining and the grumbling, no one was for it. Everyone was against it. And everyone saw huge problems with having a World's Fair in London. It was going to bring riffraff to the city. It was going to give away British technology. It was going to be a money pit. And the first big problem was no one could envision how you could build a building large enough to hold this fair. The building needed to be 3 football fields long. No one had before built such a building. He brought the best architects of the time together to come up with a solution, and nothing they came up with was workable. He then decided he would open up this problem to the general public. He would have a contest to see if anybody could come up with a solution. He opened himself up to a better idea. And the solution came from a most unlikely source. And that was a gardener for one of the large manor houses in England. And this gardener had been responsible for building one of the hot houses on the estate. And he realized that there had been new technology in making sheet glass and steel, and that they could indeed build a building large enough for this exhibition. And that's what exactly happened. It was called the Crystal Palace. It was the wonder of the day, and it was hugely successful. It was so profitable that they were later to build several museums in London for the profit. It had 2 huge innovations that we're grateful for right today. The first one was public restrooms. Before this event, there had never been such a thing as public restrooms. The other was the manufacturing of the building itself, glass and steel. No such building had been built before, and now, if you go to any of our major cities, the biggest buildings are indeed glass and steel. So Prince Albert was really an amazing person. Unfortunately, he failed in one critical area, and that was rather close to home. He had a horrible relationship with his oldest son, Bertie, the heir to the throne. Albert had devised a system of education which would literally have pounded as much information into Bertie's head as possible, because he felt this was the way to train the coming heir. It was probably the education he would have really liked to have had himself. We think Bertie probably had a learning disability because it was misery for him. He couldn't tolerate it. He rebelled all along the way, and his father and his mother did not miss an opportunity to let him know what a disappointment he was to them. No one gave him a word of praise until he was old enough to be shipped off to military school. In military school, his commanders realized something very important about him. He was a very likable person. People liked to be around him. He was easygoing, friendly, and people sought his company. Now, if you're a king with no political power, which was what he was to be, being able to persuade people to your point of view is very powerful. Now, Victoria and Albert never saw the good in him. Victoria criticized him until the day she died. But he was to go on and to be a really good king. They had a blessing right before them, but they couldn't realize it because they were too focused on the blessing they wanted to have. We have to keep our eyes open. Spirit is just not a gumball machine where we put in a prayer and we get back what we want. The whole goal of our experience here on life is so that we can create a relationship with Spirit. We say the answer to the prayer is in the prayer. And what that means is the answer to the prayer is in our relationship with Spirit. That's what we're here to do. We are here to know and to learn and experience just how much Spirit loves us, just how much faith it has in us, and just how much it is willing to rush to provide us everything we need to live an abundant, joyful, and loving life. It's what we're here to do, and we can do it. This is the truth in your life today. It's the truth in mine, and so it is. This is Reverend Ken. Until we see each other again, many blessings.